Hello, everyone. I want to welcome everyone that is here to a Talentville special event, an interview with my Oxford year screenwriter, Allison Burnett. I'm Ben Cahan. Those of you who are Talentville members will certainly know me. Those of you who are not, Talentville is an online community for screenwriters and screenwriting with things like this and posting your screenplays and networking, etc. So if you're not a member, be sure to check out Talentville and join. So, My Oxford Year is a Netflix movie that premiered on August 1st. The writing was credited to Allison Burnett, who I'll be interviewing, as well as Melissa Osborne, who I believe was the writer of the final draft that got shot into the movie. So without further ado, we're going to start and show the trailer of the movie just so everyone is familiar with what we're talking about.
Welcome to the University of Oxford. Your time here is precious. Seize it.
We have a student all the way from
New York.
New York, New York. Welcome, welcome.
Flirting with the hot teacher on the first day?
No,
Oh, no, I love it. That is a serious bit of crumpet. Can I walk you home?
Well, I wouldn't want to drag you away from your harem of girls back there.
Wow. If harem girls are anything, it's patient. So, Anna, why did you choose Oxford?
We don't have this back home, this history. I just love being among those dusty old first editions.
If you have time, then there's something that I'd like to show you. I think it's quite special.
Behold the inner sanctum.
This is just fun, right?
Fun.
Fun.
So fun.
So fun.
I go back to New York soon. That was always the plan.
Poetry can be taught, but really, it should be tried. Allow it to change your life.
Word is you and Jamie are quite the item.
We're having fun.
Yes, that's what he's good at. But the question is, are you?
I have something I really need to discuss with you. We said we'd have fun, and we have.
Trust me, Anna, it's not worth the pain.
Don't waste the short time you have left in Oxford on me. There's no future here.
I don't understand. What isn't he telling me?
You don't need to try and fix my life. Some things are just broken.
I don't know what you're going through, but you don't have to do it alone. This is the messiness of life. These are the best bits. A succession of moments is really all we have. And I want mine to be with you.
Today is not going to be a movie review, and I'm going to try to stay away from too much about the movie itself, but more specifically about the journey, because as screenwriters, when you think about a movie, this movie was originally written in 2011, and then now it's 2025 when it got made. So that's a long journey, and we want to sort of hear from the perspective of the guy that wrote the script and then had to wait 14 years for it to get made, sort of how that was and what the ups and downs of that were. So one last thing before I bring him up, he's probably wondering when we're going to actually talk. And that is just to show really quickly a few of his credits. So those who may not know Allison well, these are some big movies that, Feast of Love and Underworld Awakening and Fame and Untraceable. And he's also, in addition to being a screenwriter, he is a novelist. These are two of his novels. Both of these he actually wrote screenplays from, and then I believe directed at least one of them, maybe both of them, and produced them. So as independent films. So he's done a lot, and let me now bring Allison, after all that, on stage. There you are.
Go.
Hi, Al. Sorry for the long intro. I always seem to have a long intro for you.
Glad to be here, Ben.
So you actually was real nice of you. You actually sent me a copy of your original screenplay, which is fascinating because it's great as a writer or even a manager, producer to sort of see how a story morphs from the original vision of the original screenwriter, which is you, and then when it goes to the hands of studios and all that. So it was fascinating having it on my iPad as I watched the movie and saying,
Right.
"Where's Allison's writing?"
Well, the project started because Marty Bowen, who was a great producer and a very successful producer, I got word through his story editor at the time that he would love to do Love Story or Autumn in New York set at Oxford. That was my prompt. That's all. And it wasn't like, please write it for me. It was like, I'd love to do that. Let
It was
Allison
because you knew him and you would have conversations.
Yeah, I knew
back
him a
and
little
forth.
bit. Didn't know him a lot. I didn't know him well. And I just got this word that that's something Marty was looking to do. So I just sat down and I wrote this treatment. I wrote a treatment. The treatment is exactly the story that is in this movie today. So I submitted to the story editor, and I didn't hear anything for I think it was almost a year. It turns out that Marty had gone and traveled. He had all this shit to do. It had been sort of an idle comment. It wasn't like it was imminent. And so I just thought, wow, I did a hell of a lot of work and nothing came of it. And I thought about writing it. I didn't know. And then suddenly Marty was back and he said he wanted to meet. So we discussed it, and we thought of pitching it. It's pretty hard to sell a pitch unless it has a really high concept. About selling a pitch is they have to feel that if you do a bad job, that's okay, because they still want that idea. Like, that idea is so fresh, the concept that you're pitching, that they'd like to own it regardless if you shit the bed. But in this kind of thing, it's all about execution. If I write a bad version of this movie, what did they have? They have what Marty started with, a love story at Oxford. That doesn't give you anything. So we knew I had to spec it. And I said, okay, I'll spec this, but it's my spec script. You can give me all the input you want, but I'm not obliged to do any of it.
So initially they had the conversation. Okay, said, okay, well, we might want to do this kind of movie, love story at Oxford, but yet it's still on the come for you.
Yes, completely. Right. But I know that at the end of the day, I'm going to have a script, and most important, I'm going to have a script the way I want it. In other words, I'll take input, but I get to decide. Now, and I said to him, now, once we sell it, then I'm your slave. Right. Then I do what you tell me to do. But for now, I get to, because the whole joy of spec writing is that you don't have a producer breathing down your neck, and you pay for the right to breathe down a writer's neck, unless you're being exploited. I mean, there are producers that tell a young writer everything that they're supposed to do, that they want from a script before they paid them a nickel, but that's usually because the writer really needs to break in and needs the money and is desperate, whatever.
Well, you'd had plenty of movies made by this point, so it's not like you were.
Yeah. Exactly. So he was cool with it because he gets a free spec script, and he gets a free script and he's attached to it. So it was great. Anyway, so I write it, I give it to him, gives me a few notes. I look at them, I pick the ones I agree with. I polish it. We go out on a Monday, and we've sold it by the end of the week, and there's 2 different people want it. And by the way, I was on a roll. Like, this is just the way I'd got, after years of them not selling, now they had started to sell, and I learned a lot about how to shape an idea and, make sure I had big leads for big actors and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, so we sold it to Sony and to another company, and both of them, the other company said they would make it immediately as written, which really appealed to me. But Sony was great at marketing, really good at opening movies. And Marty said, I really want to go with Sony. And I said, I don't know. I said, I was a little concerned because they had a tendency to develop and change things. And he said, no, don't worry. So, okay. So I get my notes from Sony. They're perfectly good. Actually, they're very good. They're doable. Like 3 or 4 weeks, I've done them. I feel very good about the script. They feel very good about the script. They are like moving right toward production. And at the last minute, the guy in charge starts to say, he starts to question things, and he says, why do people, have to die anymore? Like, why can't he live? And I, with all due respect, I said, look, the DNA of this project is a tragic romance, so I'm done. So I walked away from it. And
So you had done that first, that one pass of notes that they had requested.
yeah, and we all felt great about it. I feel great about it today. I reread. I can't even remember at this point actually whether I gave you my spec or my spec 4 weeks later. It doesn't matter. It was pretty close, but I liked some of the notes they gave me. I felt perfectly good about it. I feel good about it today. And so I left, and I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. Like, I knew that I actually, if I could be honest, I really thought that was a fool's errand and that they weren't going to have him survive. I just didn't see how it was feasible. Like, I didn't get what the point of the movie was. So anyway, so I kindly departed, and then I would get reports, over the years about different things that were happening. And, like, I think about, it was rewritten probably by 4 or 5 different people came in at different times with different sort of assignments. And I think the first people was just like, give it a happy ending and make it lighter, more of a rom-com kind of thing. And I think, and then at one point I got a call, maybe 6 years in, it had almost been made at the last minute. And I got and ironically, I think, I don't know, but I think one of the problems why was that the happy ending wasn't flying so well. But anyway, then one day they called me and said, why don't you're a novelist, why don't you write a novel version? And
But let me stop you there for a second and just sort of get this TikTok straight. So when you initially sold it, which was very quick, what was the time period until it was like where you got we want a happy ending? Was that within 6 months, a year?
Oh, just a few months.
Oh, so literally early on in the days, you were like, you guys are crazy, and that's not the movie that was wanted, and that's not the movie you bought. And I
honestly, I didn't say it quite like that. I mean, I just said, like, that's not the movie I wrote. I'm not going to do that. Get someone else to do it. Like, it's easy to rewrite an ending. It isn't hard to put in a happier ending. Like, and I just don't want to be the guy who did it. Right. Because I had worked hard to not do things I didn't believe in, So
then that was quick, but then did they then bring someone on pretty quick to say,
I think so.
Did they have a roster of people with credits?
I don't know, but this is always what happens. Like, you think it's going to be quick, but once that doubt is sown and once they start meddling, then things start to take years. I mean, I just found this.
I'm going to assume that then now there might be disagreement among their own executives because
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't think anyone cares about what they care about is the president of production.
He's the one that wanted that.
And it was not Marty, it was more Sony. So I just waited it out. And then one day I got this call that, like, you're a novelist. It might be a good sales tool if we had a book. And I said, look, I would consider doing that if it were my script, but you've already changed it. So I'm not going to novelize somebody else's script. I actually said, so why don't you get that woman that went to Oxford that you hired at some point? I knew some of the names. I said, why don't you get her to do it? And the next thing I know, Julia Whalen is writing a book version. And she was writing the book version of what the script had become, which was lighter with a happier ending. And so the book.
And by the way, I haven't read the book, but how the book did well?
Very well.
Okay.
Not like, bestseller well, but well. Right. They call it a bestseller because it's sold all over the world. Romance books sell very well, and she has a big following, and people love her. And she's done voiceovers for like 600 novels. So she does the audiobooks. So she's well known in that world. So I was delighted. And then the book was about to come out, and I said, whoa, what's the cover page going to say? And they say, oh, it's a novel. I said, but it's not a novel. It's a novelization.
My darn story.
I said, you can't just take someone's, I literally had to say that, like, you can't take somebody's copyright. And, they don't know from that. They don't care from that, but I cared from that. So we actually decided, well, what if she had changed it so much that it isn't my story anymore? What if it's both of our stories? Mm-hmm. So we went to the Writers Guild and we said, what if a movie were made tomorrow of her script? Because her script was her novel. That was the same. Right. What would happen if this were made tomorrow? And they were very nice to cooperate, like to do this for us. And they did an arbitration, and they came back and said it would say written by Allison Burnett. So she had not changed the underlying story, which is the essence of a movie. They don't care if you rewrite dialogue.
Right.
They don't. Yeah, if you get credit for changing the ending, but that's a piece. You need 51% of the story has to change, and it simply didn't meet the threshold. So now if you see the book and you open it, they're in fine print based on an original screenplay by Allison Burnett. So that was important to me because it was truthful, and for copyright reasons, it was very important. Okay, so the book came out, the book did well, and years start going by, and years are going by, and I have no...
And Julia is not the first writer that was brought on. There had been others also.
I believe she was second, but I can't be positive. Okay. I was not part of that process. She might have been second.
But they're in the process of trying to figure out, okay, now that we're changing it, how do we make it go? And
yes, and what do we have that's going to... And at one point they had a cast. They had a guy named Sam Hugan, really good looking, cool English dude from a big costume drama that was big then, and Melissa Benoist, who played Supergirl. And she was, you know, they had a really nice cast, but it fell apart. I'm not sure why. So they would get close to the finish line, and this is how things happen. Now, at this point, I just want to say, I think it's very important that I had the right attitude. And my attitude was, I will do anything to support this project. My ego just was removed. And you can afford to remove your ego when you write books or you direct movies and you're doing other things that fulfill your ego and your sense of self. You don't need to be you don't become a peevish, you know, petty bitch. You just, and that's the last thing any film company wants, is a screenwriter with fucking attitude and ego and shit. Like, yeah, I'm going to correct the record about my credit, but I'm not sitting around. All I am, when I talk to the people over there, is how I felt, which is completely supportive of this.
Well, right, because if literally your whole life is this one script and it's got to get made, then you have a completely different mindset going in to everything about that movie.
And you're angry all the time. And there are screenwriters who are just angry all the time. And I always say to them, like, you know, if you want to work in movies, you're in a collaborative art form. You're going to have your heart broken, probably, if your heart is invested. Like, you have to have something that you do that can't be tampered with. And for me, that's fiction. For me, that's directing film versions of my fiction. In those spheres, I can literally count the moments or the frames of those movies or those books where I changed, even adjusted something that I didn't believe in. It's almost never happens.
Well, so when you're all the bosses, then you make the decision.
But there were people with input, and sometimes, like in my first movie, there were people that financed it, and they wanted me to, like, cut a few frames here and there. I mean, you know, stupid things, little things. But yeah, so I was blessed to be in a position where I just didn't have to fight ego battles. Like, I just wanted it to get made, and I was supportive, and I was grateful. I mean, remember, I'd been paid. I'd already sold it. You know, I didn't get my production bonus because we hadn't produced it. But you get two payments. You get paid for the script, and then you get paid a production bonus. So there was still that thing out there. Anyway, so then COVID hits.
Sorry, so the book comes out, and it's got at least some now name recognition out there a little bit.
Yes,
so that's nice.
It's doing well. It's really nice. I read it. It's a beautiful book. I completely supported it. It was a different animal from my script, but it wasn't. I assume it wasn't a different animal from their script, right? They have a script that's evolving, and I'm sure it reflects that in some way, but I don't know the answer to that question, and I don't even involve myself in it. I know that what I wrote is pure. It's what I did there. So COVID hits, and I get a call that Netflix is interested in taking it out of turnaround. And turnaround just means that Sony is no longer actively developing it. The guy that bought it has left. It's no longer in active development. It's sitting on a junk pile with hundreds of scripts that they've purchased or whatever. Every studio has a massive amount of scripts they've spent a lot of money for.
We talked about that in the last interview, and
it is insane. And there isn't even, if I ran a studio, which I don't think is going to happen, one of the first things I do is get one of the smartest people I have to read every damn thing we own and say, there's no way that all those executives over the decades bought crap.
Because we don't got to spend more money. We can, if we have stuff that
we already own, let's make that, and then have it rewritten or reimagined or whatever. But look at it. So anyway, so they asked me, and they need my cooperation and my help in getting it a turnaround, because I have the underlying rights to this. Because as far as the record shows, it is still story by me. right? There's no one's contradicted that. The Writers Guild didn't, the book didn't. So I'm very cooperative. It takes a lot of legal work. My lawyers are basically, at this point working for free, like to get all this stuff done. And it all happens. And Netflix pays actual money to get it. It's not a lot of money, but
to Sony.
Yeah, but it's to get like a year or two to set it up.
Okay.
And Netflix goes out and they do it, and it doesn't happen. COVID is getting worse. The isolation, the business is changing. Nothing happens. 2 years go by, and they come to me again. Maybe 3 years. I don't know. They said Netflix is going to pay the same amount again to take it out. So now they're spending real money, and the more money they spend, the more likely it is that they're going to make it. So that was great. And then the next thing I hear, they're making it. They have.
This is 2024. That last year.
Something, yeah, 23, 20, somewhere around there.
Okay.
I know it's heading toward production. It didn't really get an official green light until Sophia Carson went in with the producers and looked at Netflix and said, "I want this to be my next movie."
Okay.
And I love her for that. And that's what it takes these days. In the old days, if an entity, a production entity, a studio believed in something and their executives wanted it and they had a good producer, they would go out and then they'd get a director and they'd go out and get the actors, but they were committed. But now you need to bring in a lot of elements. They want the most elements they can get to reduce risk, I suppose. So Sophia did that, and for that I'm eternally grateful. And she's more than just an executive producer in name. I think she really executive produced this movie. She really was instrumental. So now I know it's a go movie. I know they're still talking about the ending. I know there's still Melissa Osborne has come on and they're doing more work. I know it's more of a romantic comedy, but I don't really have any clear answers to any of this. And I'm a little concerned. I sure hope I keep credit, but it is possible in my position to lose. It's almost impossible to lose at least shared story.
Right.
But you can lose script.
Right.
Most famously, The Last Action Hero was, I'm pretty sure that was it. It was a big movie sale by two young guys. They sold it. They dined out on it. They got a lot of work. Shane Black comes in, and the next thing you know, it's story by these guys, and they've lost all screenplay credit with no warning. It's devastating. So, there is that possibility. I don't know the answer to this. I don't even know the answer until I go. Okay. So then.
Wait. Financially, though, you still have a contract that when it gets made. I mean, from the finance.
It is still based. And I have now, that production bonus from Sony has disappeared. There's a new one with Netflix. That production bonus was very favorable to me because Netflix doesn't play residuals and because I was so cooperative. We were all amicable. And it specifically stated that if I had shared written by or shared screenplay by, that everything was in effect. Okay. But if I had lost, and I don't lose anything for sharing, there's no diminution of the bonus, but it's really important that I have at least shared. And story by is crucially important because story by is what establishes what's called sole separated rights. It's the thing whereby you own the copyright for prequels and sequels and series and merchandise, everything. It's what ties you to the project irrevocably. And that story by credit is important.
Right. So, and the story never changed. I mean, no.
I don't know any of that though.
Ultimately, I've read your script. I've seen the movie. It's the same.
But I had never read it, so I didn't know anything, and I really did not know. So, the first thing you wait is to see the company declares the credits to a movie, and then people can question it, and an arbitration ensues at the Writers Guild. Arbitrations can be incredibly terrifying and painful because you get a phone call one day and you pick up, it's the Writers Guild, and they go, "Do what? Would you like us to mail it to you, or do you want to know?" And you say, "Yeah, what's the credit?" And what they say to you can be life altering in that one phone call, financially life altering and credit wise. I mean, it's a big deal. So I don't want there to be an arbitration, obviously, because it's hell right, and you have to write a statement. You got to pick through all the drafts, and you've got to go through all of them and write a letter stating your case of what you believe.
If they tell you don't got something,
if there's an arbitration,
right.
If someone arbitrates, either you, sometimes I've arbitrated, sometimes other people. That you contest. It's called contesting the credit, and then it goes to arbitration. So Netflix's credit expert reads every draft and makes their declaration. Story by me, screenplay by me and Melissa Osborne. So I'm delighted, right? I'm thrilled. I have no problem. And frankly, when a movie changes this much, I don't mind sharing credit. I don't want people to think I wrote every single word of something that I didn't write. What does that behoove me? I once worked on a script, a romance, that I was very proud of. I was a rewriter. And we went to arbitration. And the arbitration committee, there's 3 people. One said, I rewrote more than 50% and deserve co-credit. And the other 2 said, I didn't quite reach it, and she got sole credit. But there were other writers doing pieces, and there was estimations that the original writer wrote about 5% of the story.
Yeah. And gets
sole. Okay, so weird things can happen, right? But I was perfectly honored and pleased and thrilled that Melissa Osborne did a great job. She's the one that brought it over the finish line. She turned it into what they wanted. She fulfilled her job, which is to make them happy and have a movie that does well. So she did that. That was great. But now I don't know if someone's going to contest the credit. So now I've got to wait 2 full weeks to see if someone's going to contest. And I was just stunned that no one did until the company told me, first of all, no one else deserves it. And second of all, they have no financial incentive the way the deals were structured. So this is just the way it went. I've never been involved in a movie that had this much activity where nobody contested just for the hell of it. It doesn't cost you anything to contest, just a pain in the butt. You got to do homework and, read it, all the stuff. So I never even read. They sent me the shooting script. I never read it. So I went into the premiere having no idea what I was about to see.
Wow. Of your own movie.
Yeah.
That's what, that's a great lesson for aspiring writers, because when you told me that, when we talked about doing this a month or 2 ago, I was like, or a couple weeks ago, I was like shocked. It's like, holy moly.
Well, the thing is, I don't like to do anything or admit anything into my brain that will destroy my peace of mind. So I don't want to fret over things. That's why I haven't watched the news since the election. I just don't want stuff there that just distresses me for no reason. So I figured, well, I'll be surprised. So I went there, and this is the fun part. I mean, this really was fun for me. So I go there, and I'm watching this movie. I have not read my script in 14 years. Now, you may think, oh, you don't forget a thing you write. What you kind of do in 14 years is a long time, right? That's a difference between a 6-year-old and a 20-year-old. Okay, it's a lot of time. So I'm watching things. And I literally, there was one joke in it when he says, if harem girls are anything, it's Patient. And I thought that was really funny. And I laughed and the audience laughed. And I actually had the thought, like, how did she write that joke? That joke.
You wrote that joke.
Well, I didn't know that.
Oh, because I read that joke in your script.
Told my story. Thank you.
Oh, no, sorry.
You tread on my punchline. But I thought, like, how did she write that joke? I mean, I felt like I got a sense of her style. It just felt out of character. I don't know. I just felt like it was such an old man joke, like an old English joke. I don't know. I just didn't think she would say that. And then I watched a lot of stuff and I go, oh yeah, that's familiar. That's familiar. But I couldn't really pinpoint much, So I felt blessed to have my credit. The next day I read my script again and I was shocked because, like, I even remember when she arrives at the quad at the beginning and she's looking up at Oxford at the spires and she's clumping with her suitcase up the stairs, all that stuff. I actually thought, wow, this is a real lesson in how little you need to say to open a movie. Because I'm engaged, it's beautiful to look at it, it tells a story and you don't need any words. And I'm looking at my script and it's all there beat for beat. Literally the suitcase going up the stairs, all of it. I was like, wow, and then I would say the poetry tutorials, the scenes with the parents, a lot of that stuff really stayed either intact or quasi intact, especially the poetry stuff. We can't talk about can we talk about the ending even though people haven't seen the movie? I don't know. But the ending is the big thing. The ending is the big controversy. I don't know if it's a controversy, but people are talking about it all over social media. And what'd you say?
Go for it. Go for it.
Well, the only thing is there was a happy ending and there was a sad ending. And the movie, I thought, rather ingeniously found a way to blend them. In the book, it's a happy ending, but sadness is coming. In my version, sadness comes, but there's a positive hope.
Right. You still ended with a positive experience.
Yes, very, very positive.
Which is essentially just a little different version of what's in the movie.
It's practical, yes. And so it was really funny to me because when they called me at one point and said, "Hey, do you want it? We have the ending. We really love it. Do you want to know how it ends?" And I said, "Of course, tell me." And they described it. And I said, "Do you remember how my story ended?" Producer goes, "I don't have a clue." And I said, "Well, here's the ending that you bought." And it was the same ending minus the cruel reveal. But that reveal is ingenious. And that reveal, I truly believe, is one of the reasons why it affects people so deeply, because the hope and the hopeless are intermingled in a way that really is made. I mean, if you go on TikTok and put in my Oxford year and just go like this, you will see 400 videos of girls sobbing their guts out. I mean, just sobbing, crying. It's really affecting people. And I believe it's that sort of dance between hopeful and hopeless, or life and death dancing together. So I have great praise for whoever thought of that little switch that they did. And so that's where I am today. Now, obviously, it's a little weird when there are people online going, why, oh, why did they change the book's ending? And to Julia's credit, when she's interviewed, she says, I changed their ending. They didn't change my ending.
Right.
And she said, so when you see the movie, you'll see how I changed the script. You won't see how the script changed my book. And
so then the question then is, over the course of the years, again, because we're talking to screenwriters mostly here, did you have any involvement, or did new writers, did they pick up the phone and give you a ring?
No. And I don't even know, honestly, I don't even know who read my script. I assumed that they were building on a mountain of sand. I just assumed that every draft, the new writer was building off the previous draft, but I don't think that's the case. I think what often happens is they say, look, we love those 3 things from that guy's draft, but you built on, and you know what I mean? So I think it's clearly they couldn't have been doing that because there were just too many. I mean, how would that joke have survived? When I saw that I wrote the joke, I just burst out laughing. I couldn't believe it. It was like surreal to see the harem girl joke on the page. Well, how could that joke have survived 5 incarnations? It just wouldn't have,
Well, nobody rewrote it from step one because the beats are yours. I mean,
yes, yeah. And the pub, like the fight in the pub, for instance, like in my version, she slugs the guy. In this version, she puts water down his pants. Now, 14 years ago, you could hit someone and, it would be less Will Smith, you could get away with that. And I should say that in my version, the girl does want to work in finance, but she comes from a working class family in Ohio. So, she's a little bit of a tough girl.
Look, I personally like the scholarship girl angle myself more than the.
Well, she wasn't a scholarship. In my version, they both have a scholarship. They're both basically like Rhodes Scholars in a way. They both have a year. The only difference is she's finished college and is going to go to Morgan Stanley. And in my version, she's still in college and she's doing a year abroad. That's the only difference.
Right. My point here is only, and again, we'll move on, but my point is only that because she hasn't seen the world as a poorer Ohio girl. So the idea of her being able to see the world through this experience sort of meant something to me, if you follow me. It was sort of she hasn't really had worldly experiences. Whereas
in my version,
in your version, that's right. Which I like. Right. I like that.
Yeah.
That A to B. That's part of the art.
I wanted the Cinderella feeling that this working class girl from basically a pretty poor family. She gets no support from anyone, and she goes off to do this. And her family actually arrives. In your draft, did the family come to England?
No, I don't think so.
That's what they had me get rid of. I remember now. They had me get rid of thing where he flies her family over for an American Thanksgiving, and it's really kind of fun because he doesn't know anything about Thanksgiving really, and the woman and her mother's gotten sober and is getting her life together, and it was kind of a touching thing and a real dichotomy and from when she goes to his family, and in my version the rich father is practically trying to buy her off, basically like, here's money, go away. And anyway,
but that's for me, that's an arc. See, that was the thing.
Yes,
the poor girl, unworldly. Again, this whole experience allows her then to get those experiences that may shape her life.
And I also had her in 5 literature classes. You see snippets of Shakespeare, romantic poetry, and this is just one of a group of classes, and she's working her ass off. In this, she only has 1 class, and she's a graduate student, so it's a little bit different. There's no stress on her academically, Right.
And it's a movie, so it
fairy
doesn't
tale
have to be necessarily realistic.
And this is more of a fairy tale. And I have to say, like, I have no judgments about any of this. I am thrilled. I thought the movie had great beauty to it. It communicates at a level that's, obviously, only a third of the critics like it. I don't care. Like, audiences love it. It's #1 in the world. It's moving people. It's touching people, and like, I remember when Pretty Woman opened, like everybody was talking about, oh, what a cheese fest and all this shit they were dumping on that movie. And it just went on to, conquer the world. So like, I get that movies are a populist medium. My self-esteem is not tied to whether some critic thinks it's cheesy or not. And, my original script was many, but it did not have like cringe cheesy moments. It just wasn't that kind of fairy tale. Mine was much more austere and much more literary. And so, whatever. I'm only grateful.
Well, I mean, that's the beauty of it. First of all, I think you're able to say that because you're at a point in your career where one more credit is okay. That's lovely, and I'm glad. And okay, there's a little financial bonus, but you've got a career. It's not you make a phone call. It took me 3 screens to show a few of your credits. So, but it is good that because it was, you came up with the idea by yourself. You wrote the pitch. You wrote the script on spec. And
yes, it's deeply fulfilling to see that framework, that story being told and making girl. When you see a human being in France, in South America, sobbing on Netflix, on TikTok, you go, wow, this is a long way away from Autumn in New York opening, and you look at the weekend and, oh, it made 12 million this weekend, and then it made 6 and it starts to fall, and then you hear, oh, it's opening in Italy next year. Like, the world has changed, man. It's so wild.
I'm glad I don't log into TikTok much. Otherwise, researching this would have been a rabbit's hole for me. Okay, let me do this, Allison. That was awesome. We have some questions from our members here, and I'm going to read a few of these for you. You can look in the Q&A tab. If you click on the little Q&A on the right side. So, all right, so we've been through this. Did those who made rewrites discuss anything with Allison and leave communications open? The answer is no, which is, it. I mean, look, you've been hired to rewrite scripts before, right? Do you pick up the phone and call the writer? Or no,
I would if I had a real question about something, but I'm keenly aware that my job has got really nothing to do with them, sadly. My job is that someone hired me and paid me money to give them what they want, and I'm doing their bidding. I would call them if I had a question.
Okay.
But I'm trying to do,
sometimes there might be research involved in this and that, and you might be able to get research information from the writer that has.
I think I might have told this story when we did our first talk, but I had a great interaction once where on Untraceable, it was about to go, and I had great respect for the script I rewrote in Untraceable. It had almost been made for a long time, and they needed some idea. My producers, they wanted some extra thing, and I figured out that thing practically like in the shower one day, and it was like a eureka moment, and I got the gig, and when it was time to arbitrate, they were going to arbitrate, and I looked over the script, and I just called them, and I said, you know what? I'm looking at this, and you have as much chance of losing your credit as I do of losing mine. It's so much is about the way the arbitrators are going to view certain things. I said, why don't we just call it a truce? Let's share the credit. Let's both get credit and just enjoy this and take all the anxiety out. And they said, let us think about it. And they called the next day and they said, okay, you know what? If you always speak of our script with respect at the press junket and you pay for our limo to the premiere, we'll do it. And I said, done. And by the way, he had one of the 2 writers who lives here. We've become friends, and I have great respect for him. And it was born out of that collegial thing. So it can happen, but we didn't talk till it was all over.
No, look, it's a valuable, thing that writers need to put in their brain is that, the more you cooperate, instead of, if you fight them everywhere, then they're going to get rid of you as soon as they can, probably, and you won't get the calls. Okay, next question. Did you get any say in the casting? Probably not.
0.
Okay, but let me reframe the question. Did you have any involvement when Netflix bought it in terms of, or it was just that you found out about it? And
I guess if I were some sort of weirdo and an asshole, I could have tried to push for something. I want producer credit. They probably would have thrown me up. They have like 18 producers on movies now. They throw these hollow credits at people, like the manager, the agent, not the agent, but the manager. All these people are getting credits and not doing anything for the credit. I probably could have done that, but I didn't even think of that. But Netflix was very generous with me. Their bonus was amazing. They don't pay back end, so they treat people really well. They were great to me.
All right, next question, and I'm going to try to run through these. We've been at this for a while. What was the primary reason it was necessary to have other writers brought in to do rewrites? You can just answer this as a general question of the rewrite process.
Well, just because I left the project, and I left willingly. In fact,
right, but they still have a script. But the bottom line is there's new personalities involved.
Well, no, one person in charge decided, and he's a guy that was known for doubting everything. At the same time they did this with this movie, I had done a rewrite, a reimagining of Against All Odds, the Jeff Bridges, which
love
that
yes,
movie. Which was originally Out of the Past, right? The Robert Mitchum movie, right? They had remade it, reimagined it as Against All Odds, and then I reimagined it again, set in Florida. They were going to do it with Rihanna. It was going to be so fucking cool, and she was going to sing "Take a Look at Me Now." I was so excited, and like they were right at the finish line with both of those movies. And they both started unraveling because the guy that was in charge was somebody who doubted himself and had anxiety. And he would start to ask everybody's opinion, and it would start to devolve. And so that's what happened to both movies.
And they don't just take their own career down there. Like there's other people such as you involved with the project where their insecurities or doubts about the project, all of a sudden you're going to get a phone call.
I knew what was coming, and I didn't want to be part of that devolution. I could feel it. But on the surface, it was about changing the ending. But I knew changing the ending was about much, because I'd already been through it on Against All Odds with him. I knew where this leads. And so I didn't leave with any animus. I just felt like, be well, thank you. I sold you the script. I pray. And I always had this theory, like if it's going to be a good movie, a viable movie, it will be with or without you. It will be with or without all the little wars. In the end, there's going to be a director and a million choices will be made, and that director is going to deliver it or he's not. And you have to just kind of let go and have a Zen attitude about it. I never lost a minute's sleep over this. I just moved on with my life, and all of this has been extra.
See, I think that is the toughest lesson for aspiring writers to get. And I struggle with, I understand why it has to be, because you are one piece cog in a big wheel.
And your best defense against this is to just be really prolific. Every script is a lottery ticket that puts you in play. I have a movie right now that is really poised to go at Amazon. They love it. It's the same producer that I sold it with to somebody else in 2008. Okay. I'm not kidding. And we optioned it, and I rewrote it for $500,000. Optioned it. They didn't even buy it.
Amazon?
No, another company.
Okay.
That I rewrote it. The option expired. I get my original script back, and as long as I'm not using their rewrite, I own it to sell again. And I stuck with my producer all these years, and now that we're that close to them, that lottery ticket has never died. Now, have I polished a little bit here and there? Yeah, I do some polishing on it to keep it updated. But the point is, if the structure is solid, if the enterprise is solid, the story works, it's not just going to die on you. And so if you have a lot of those in play, you don't get obsessed with one. And there are writers, like, they write their thing and it sells and their whole world is tied up. Go write another one every 3 months if you have to. Like, get things circulating, have lots of lottery tickets.
So your life these days is a mostly hired or mostly spec or most what? Your screenwriting life.
I mean, quite honestly, the business has changed radically. I have much more activity on things on the shelf than I do anybody clamoring for me to write a new script, because the days of the spec sales are largely over. Sure, every now and then, the fact that you remember them tells you how rare they are. It used to be that after every weekend, there'd be 3 or 4 spec sales. It's just not that way anymore. So, and by the way, when every time you see one of those spec sales, you take a deeper look and you go, oh, that guy's attached, that director's attached. It's not really a spec strictly. It's a project. Specs used to go out naked, which is you and a producer, and they went out, you know. So I am always working on some sort of spec enterprise with less passion, because the road to production is so much harder. And I think more about fiction, and I'm always moving things on the shelf. There's always action with the things that have been sitting on the shelf.
All right. Well, you're obviously still a screenwriter.
And I'm getting older. I'm not as hungry.
Okay, fair.
I'm not as hungry.
Fair
and I read about fascism voraciously. I read about World War II, like with event. I read like a lot.
Do you like the novel writing better or the screenwriting better? Now that you've done.
Well, I would say screenwriting is definitely more fun.
Okay.
Because it's just fun and it's easier. And novel,
you get to post a picture of you at the premiere. I mean, I get it.
Exactly, but writing a novel is more fun, but it's deeper, harder work.
Okay,
I'm sorry, novel writing is deeper, harder work, but it's more fulfilling.
Right.
Screenwriting's really,
because look, novel writing, obviously there's so much ability to go into psychology and inner thinking and motivations and backstory, and where you've got to be clever about it in a screenplay to allow people to infer so much more.
Yeah, screenwriting is all about condensation. You're constantly condensing the fewest amount of words to give that architecture for those scenes to work. And of course, I believe in writing good dialogue, and I believe in that. But I don't feel like it's just it's a completely different skill set. But it's fun because it is communal, because it does go out into the world, because there's immediate gratification if it sells. It's just, the whole thing's fun. Novel writing is a very lonely, long ass pursuit. And then even and by the way, the fiction world is in terrible condition. Like, yeah, it's one thing if you write a romance novel, you can sell that. But if you're trying to write literary fiction, which is what I do, it's brutally hard.
But you're not click and refresh to see new reviews of your book, or maybe you are.
Well, no, I don't get new reviews of my book.
Amazon and Goodreads and.
No, I don't care.
Okay, good.
I mean, I'm glad if people love it. I'm glad, but I don't have any of that. No, like, I've sold a book a day since the movie opened. I get a kick out of that, right? Because I don't mean I mean of the few books that are shorter that I self-published and made the movies, like the ones that became movies and stuff. Those smaller books, like I get a kick out of that people read. They see in my Oxford year, something happens when they get into a Google hole and they end up learning about this trilogy of books for girls that are about these girls that go missing, and they buy them. And I think that's great.
That's awesome. Well, I love the first one. So, but we've talked about that. Okay. Is it rare to sell a script to 2 buyers? I guess obviously a producer's got to go out to a lot of people when they.
Well, you go out to a lot of people. That's a good question. I don't think I think that was the only. No, I think one time there was a choice, but it was an easy choice where someone was offered me more money, and the other place it was going to be made by a specific director that I wasn't crazy about. It was a specific thing, but usually it's just been one. But that was rare where I actually had to make a decision.
All right. What was it like for you watching the film? You kind of answered this, but you had a good time, didn't you?
I did. I mean, there's stuff that's not my sensibility. For instance, I really enjoyed the karaoke scene. Like, I probably would never write a karaoke scene in a movie that ended so sadly. I wouldn't even think that what they did tonally is really hard. And the reason I know it's hard is that it's never been done before. Has there ever been a movie that for one half is so close to being a full-on romantic comedy and then takes that turn? That's really hard to do.
Okay.
I'm just kind of, it's almost like a piece of sleight of hand. And I'm kind of amazed. You see it in the trailer, right? It's like, and then the music like goes to the minor key, and the producers of The Fault in Our Stars, and they go, oh God. And then you see it turn, right? Well, I think the movie does that pretty deftly. And it's, you know, they hired a guy that comes from comes from comedy. They hired a comedy director. And I think you're more likely to get a guy to succeed from comedy than to try to get some drama director to keep it light. He did it very well, I thought, and very different.
But I mean, look, you showed up. You obviously you're there, and the stars are there, and the executives are there, and it you know.
It was a laugh, and everybody was so inclusive and so friendly. And I had never met anybody but Marty. Like, there's a woman named Laura Quicksilver who was the hands-on producer in England doing all this work. She and I communicated 100 times about different things as we were moving through the process, and I never met her. And you know, it's just so great to meet her. And she did the first karaoke performance as an actor. She's the producer of the movie, and she was hilarious. And no, everybody was really. I was in the elevator. I don't even know I'm in the elevator with my son, my attorney, and my son's girlfriend, and we're in the elevator, and I hear someone go, "Oh, this is our brilliant screenwriter." And I realize I'm standing next to this tall, lovely woman, and who's Melissa. So I whisper in her ear, "I'm the other brilliant screenwriter." And she goes, "Oh my God," you know. And it's like, this is Allison, and I met everybody, you know. So it was great.
I guess they could just as easily have said, "Well, he was involved a generation ago."
Yeah, I know.
It's good for them to be nice.
And they couldn't have been nicer. And the whole thing was festive. And even my cynical cineast son, who only likes, you know, really, really edgy, twisted indie films, he said he had a great time. Like, they just had fun. So.
Okay, a few others. Will we get a recording? My connection keeps going out. Well, that's a bummer, Jennifer. Yes, we will edit this and put it up at Talentville, maybe someday at YouTube. So for a while, anyhow.
I have no idea if there were last minute rewrites. I don't know. I'm assuming.
Yeah, well, I didn't ask you that because
I'm assuming she was on the set. I'm assuming Melissa Osborne was on the set, and they were probably changing as they went and fixing things on the set. I'm assuming, but I don't know for a fact.
And so, in the films that you've been involved with, that you were the final writer or the only writer, the bottom line is they're in communication with you, I presume, if there's any.
Yeah, when I did all those movies for Lakeshore, I would get called. They didn't change. Was like Clint Eastwood. He didn't believe in messing with scripts once you started shooting.
Okay.
But every now and then he'd call him and say, "Listen, we need this," and he'd give me a specific task, and I would just write it and email it to him on the set, and they'd shoot it the next day. That did happen. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I guess I don't know if that's that's contractual, or heck, you want the best movie.
One thing that was really fun was seeing that the Grand Tour is very much the way I wrote it. Even the little church in Holland that's hiding in Amsterdam, that's like hiding behind in that building, that was specifically the place I put in the script. So that was kind of fun that they really followed it.
Yeah,
and I just read they took a whole tour. They took a whole week with a crew and the actors, and they went all over Europe on a vacation, you know, shooting those scenes. And it really adds production value. They did not scrimp. There was no green screen.
Well, right. And that's, you know, you think when you're watching it as a writer or someone that's like, well, that, you know, that's a lot of locations. But I guess
visually gorgeous, like you could turn the sound off and just watch the movie. It is beautiful to look at. I thought in general, just the production design, the costumes, it was just like luscious to look at. You know. All
right, let's finish this up. Do you have a set method when writing a script, or is it different for every film? I mean, I guess every writer has a process.
Yeah, my process is just that I like to have the basic beginning, middle, and end, and I like to have at least a sense of two dramatic, important turning points in the story. See, once you have the story, all the rest is a joy. It's just fun to write dialogue. It's fun to discover what's going on. The hard part is staring at a blank screen and constructing an architecture with so you don't get bored. You know, the audience has to stay grabbed, and you can't let them go for 90-something minutes. And that is a complicated process to keep them engaged. And as soon as there's a lull, you can feel it in the theater. So how do you keep it torquing up, so they're never, you never let go of them. And that is a technical thing that you learn over time. And in order to do that, I need to know the basic turning points.
So
Like,
do you do like a beat board or a just a written summary?
I just do it on a piece of paper. Like, so like, I know that she meets him, you know, and I know that she suspects he's seeing another woman, and the audience is, and that's building, and that he's, and in my script, he's like, he has a secret. Where is he going? Well, he's getting chemo, but she doesn't know that. So it's like, it's building these things. And then I have a big belief that the reveal of a piece of information, just the reveal of information, is as good as any action. It's the same thing as an action that's applied. So in other words, finding out who Celia really is in the movie is a big moment that keeps it. And what you want is for people to be off balance. So they don't go, oh, I know where this is going. You surprise them and they're wrong. And the more times you do that, the more engaged they stay.
But the writing of individual scenes to get to a certain thing, I know I got to get here because this is the next thing I got to reveal. That's where you're having the fun.
Yes. You're building those units, right? So I just have and once I have that in place, then I feel free to start writing. But I stay very, very open-minded. I don't know what I'm going to discover. I'm open to learning new things. I don't, I just try to enjoy it every day and just make progress. And I usually find that the first act will take about a month. And then the second act will take about 3 weeks. And the third act takes about a week. Because by that time, everything's inevitable. You have fewer options. And that's right. And then a draft is good. And that's really, it's pretty good. And then I might polish it, might get a few opinions, and then polish it. But that's usually the standard.
Do you rely on you more than other opinions? I find opinions are very, very valuable.
I'm open to anyone's because I know that I have the confidence to know that I'm the arbiter of what I choose. When you're young, it's so threatening because each person's point of view can send you into a spiral because you don't really know what you're doing. So when people cast doubt on things, you can throw out the baby with the bathwater. And
you know why you did something or why you made a decision, so you can.
Right. Now, if someone says to me, and sometimes it's just taste. Some people. Think about the most successful movie in the world, whatever that is, the biggest blockbuster. 40% of the people you meet hate it.
Right.
You know what I mean? They hate it. And so you can't expect for every person you give it to like it. That just isn't going to happen.
The best books in the world have 1-star reviews. I get it. That's just how it is. All right. Finally, Jane says, "I'd love to." Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but we've democratized criticism. So right now there are no gatekeepers. There's not a single critic in America that anybody listens to. There's no David Denby, Pauline Kael, John Simon, like the great reviewers, the people that you'd argue with them, but you took their opinion as being based on a great wealth. All that is gone, right? Everybody's a friggin' it's unbelievable. Like that, the person that can barely speak is up there like pontificating. And I see people that go like, let me explain to you why my Oxford year isn't sad. And it's like, what are you talking about?
Well, if you look at whether it's Rotten Tomatoes or any other, the bottom line is that I look at what they call the critics. I don't recognize 80% of them. I don't know who they are. Some website. And maybe they're, I don't know. It's somebody.
Well, every now and then I'll see someone really thoughtful. And I know within 1 minute of them talking that they are truly a critic.
Right.
That they are reasoned and intelligent and articulate and they see the whole thing. But the clowns that hold themselves in that position are many.
All right. Finally, we have from Jane. She says, "I'd love to see you direct a film again." So I guess I'll just ask what your plans in terms of. It's a lot of work.
Oh, no, it's not. No, it's remarkably great fun work. Remember, I do very contained indies that are 2-week shoots, 3.5-week shoots. It's grueling while you're shooting, but it's a joy. And I have and casting's a blast. It's all a blast. It's the most fun you'll ever have in your life. It's like, it's fantastic. But it's just about money. If I stumbled over $1 million in my front yard, I would make The Last Girl podcast. I'd make my novel into a movie. It's just about money. It's all it is. And but in both cases, in the last 2 movies I did, someone came to me with a chunk of money and said, and I matched it in one case with my own money. And the second time it was like enough to make the film. It was like 500. was enough to make the movie. And I and a producer tossed in a little bit to help to get us to a certain point. So I'm willing to, put skin in the game. A lot of people aren't. For me, it's a joy. But unless I stumble over it, there will not be another movie. I mean, it just isn't going to happen. No one's going to pay me to make an indie of a third book of a trilogy. I'm not going to understand why.
Well, listen, that was great. It's such a fascinating thing to sort of see what the real process in the real world is, because when you're writing a script as a wannabe, you don't have that 14-year experience or 3-year or 2-year, whatever it is. I mean, forget the ones that get bought and made a year later. That's great, and those writers are super lucky. But in the real world, this happens all the time, I imagine.
And I've never been all those movies. I've never been on the movie set, except one of the early ones, and all of it taught me was that the director was so inept, and it still looked like a movie, that I said, "Hey, I can direct." Like, if that guy that doesn't have any clue what he's doing got through this process, well, then I can do it. And so it was worth the humiliation of being on a set, because when you're there for a whole month, you have no business. They don't need you, and they don't respect writers, and there's an arrogance, and everybody's like doing their thing, and like, I go, wait a minute, that line's being completely misread. That's not what the line means. They're like, they tolerate you. It's awful, especially if you're like a perfectionist who gives a shit. And if the director isn't great, why would you want to be there? So they always go like, oh, I want to be. You don't want to be on the set. You wait around like a chooch. It's really, your work should be done in that script. And if the director sucks, it's not going to be good no matter what you do. And if the director's good, it's going to be good no matter what you do. So just go enjoy your life. All
right, Allison. Thank you, sir. That was awesome.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks for everyone who tuned in.
Yep. And thanks. Everybody. We had most people stay, and we will do it again sometime. Thanks. Cool. Thanks, guys.